Well, as leftist and Democratic politicians continue not to do an honest, thorough self examination as to why they lost the election in 2024, well, neither's the media. And I'm not talking about the mainstream media that's basically there to spin and deliver propaganda night after night on the behest of the deep state. I'm talking about independent media. I'm talking about alternative media, online left-leaning media. They don't get it either. And it just could be that their complete lack of understanding of who the American people are, where the American people are at in their thinking and in life, contributes to their not getting it, missing it, and constantly endorsing and promoting all of the wrong people. Let me give you example Exhibit A. Krystall balls of breaking points.
One of the weirder mysteries of the Kamala Harris campaign was what the hell happened to Tim Walz. So he came out of the gates hot, was turning his cable news campaign, his stellar Minnesota record, into a vice presidential slot. He honestly seemed like the perfect choice.
So she thinks Tim Walz was connecting with people. Okay.
Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth. Top of the line.
Hi, I'm Pastor Marty. Please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and once you are, smack the bell, click the word all. That will give you notification of my rants, my ravings, my undeniably flawless reasonings. Please like and share this video. It's the only way that we get the word out that we're here. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of the Afternoon Drive. Krystall, who was initially part of the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media, and then basically lost her job after doing an on-air interview with someone claiming to have inside information regarding a missile strike on a commercial jetliner, and just, on air did a total and complete faceplant. She ended up over at the Hill doing Rising with Sagar and Jetty. And then the two of them decided they would branch out and do their own thing. Hey, that's great. That's fine. More power to them. She then divorced her husband, who I believe was one of those hedge fund investor individuals. In other words, she got half of a considerable chunk of money, took that money to launch her own thing, dump her husband, I'm sure saddle him with child support and alimony, and picked up with Kyle Kalinske, another know-nothing YouTuber who has been doing this literally forever, and now he's got bleach blonde hair and trying desperately to look like Joy Reid, and he looks like he's like 14, and that Krystall has to pick him up after soccer practice. And, he gives his political insight, and they were doing a thing together, and obviously they fell in love. And so this is the intelligentsia that we have on the left. They backed Marianne Williamson for president. They were Bernie people. But in the end, they always, like good little Guntas, come back to the motherland, and they will endorse whatever the Democratic Party decides to roll out. That's Krystall. Uneducated, uninformed, uninterested, lacking any real intelligent breakdown of what's happening. So, of course, she just doesn't understand why the American people didn't fall in love with Tim Walz, or was there something else amiss?
He's an affable Midwesterner, history of electoral outperformance. He translated a down-to-earth vibe into an incredible record in a purple state. In fact, with his selection for the ticket, it seemed like Kamala was eschewing her previous cautious positioning. To go bold with a character who resonated on TV, it did not shy away from using power. Walz had a natural talent for pitching progressive policies in a way that felt moderate and characterized Trump and Vance in a way that went instantly viral. These guys, they're just weird.
His Midwest success? Really? Was that before or after two cities in his state were nearly burned to the ground over George Floyd riots. Police stations being taken over. Areas of his cities being taken over and then declared no longer part of the state, no longer part of the United States. And we watched all this in real time on television. What about his Midwestern affable values connected with the average American? The fact that they have abortion right up to the moment of birth in Minnesota, does that connect with everyday people? What about his little COVID snitch line that he had during the pandemic that you could call in and turn in your friends, family members, and loved ones who were violating, whether it was 6 feet or having company over to their homes, etc., etc., etc. What about the fact that his wife said during those riots she would open the windows of her house because she loved the smell of the burning tires? It said freedom. As small business people saw their livelihood literally go up in flames and lost everything they had. But that was the sentiment of the governor's wife. And then his whole campaign was going to be that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were weird. Just weird, man. They're just weird. Really? Wasn't weird as the governor of the state of Minnesota to put tampon dispensers in boys' rooms, earning you the nickname Tampon Tim. That wasn't weird.
So, yeah, they're weird.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
After what was a phenomenal launch, she quickly became a massive draw on the campaign trail, and the Harris campaign looked like they were set to use Walz's Minnesota record as a way to fill in the gaps on Kamala's own ideological vagueness. They released even a solid proposal to go after price gougers, which caused a glorious right-wing meltdown about supposed price controls. Walz suggested himself a focus on bread and butter issues, things like paid leave, which have been really popular in Minnesota. He leaned into J.D. Vance mockery, even made some couch jokes down on the campaign trail. But then sometime around the DNC, things really seemed to flip. Price gouging was out, opportunity economy was in. Weird was out, fascist was in, and Sean Fain, head of the UAW, was out. Liz Cheney neocon was in. Now, Politico has revealed what many of us have long suspected. Tim Walz was sabotaged by an insecure Kamala Harris who didn't want him to outshine her, and by dim-witted, arrogant consultants who thought they knew better about what would resonate than the organic response which had originally greeted Tim Walz and his framing of the race.
Alrighty then.
So that's it. Oh, I missed it, that Kamala was jealous of Tim Walz. No, if I remember correctly, members of the left-leaning media and even alternative media began to get a little bit nervous. The more Tim Walz talked, the more they discovered he was the one that was weird. Oh, and a liar. A pathological liar. And that maybe they should have gone with Shapiro from Pennsylvania. And maybe they would have won that swing state. But no, they went with Tim Walz. And then we found out Tim Walz had lied about what rank he retired from the military from. Imagine that, lied. He lied about being in Tiananmen Square in China. Found out through newspaper articles he was actually there 4, 5, 6 months after it happened. We were told he was a football coach. Then it was an assistant coach. Then it was modified down to, well, he was one of the coaches. Look, I coached varsity high school basketball for 18 years, and I can tell you that the stats keepers that sit at the table are considered, quote, part of the coaching staff. There were some nights I didn't even know the person of the name of the person sitting at the scoring table keeping book for us. Tim Walz, the fact that he was basically a glorified jockstrap picker-upper and throw it in the dirty clothes bin, that he was one of probably a half a dozen other dads standing on the sidelines, carrying water bottles, etc., didn't make him a coach, but that's the way the Democratic Party tried to sell him to us. And then, of course, there was the whole shotgun fiasco. Remember that? He took a team of reporters, and we were going to follow Tim Walz out on a pheasant hunt. And it was painfully obvious he didn't even know how to load the shotgun that he said that he had used hundreds of times, his Beretta, and didn't have a clue how to load it or what to do with it. He was phony, fake. And I can tell you, I lived in the Midwest. I went to college in the Midwest. I don't live there anymore. I wasn't raised there. I was raised on the East Coast in New York, went to college in the Midwest. Then I went back to New York, lived in Florida for 7 years. Then I moved to Ohio, which is right on the Indiana border. And you talk about Midwest, baby. That's it. Lived there 7 years. Now I live in the state of Georgia, and I can tell you that Tim Walz doesn't have Midwest values, not by any stretch of the imagination. What he has is a state that has a pocket of concentrated liberals that live there, leftovers from the Walter Mondale era, and that's all you've got in Minnesota. That the rest of the state, the rest of the Midwest, is fairly conservative. Common sense, conservative people. That is not Tim Walz. And Krystall Ball thinking that Tim Walz, had the Harris campaign not been jealous and listened to him, they would have done so much better. Really. And that's kind of what Tim Walz is saying now, because apparently he wants to run for El Presidente in 2028. Well, Timmy boy, good luck with that. Can't wait to see you get smacked down and not even make it out of the primaries. You got to be kidding me. If you really think, though, that Tim Walz is the future of your party, Krystall, that just shows you again what kind of insight you don't have, what kind of instincts you don't have. And Sagar, why do you waste your time? Your other sidekick there, Emily, she's out doing her own thing now with Unheard. But I'll say this, she is sharp. She is smart. She asks the right questions. She usually comes up with the right conclusions. Sagar, if I were you, I'd hook up and do stuff with Emily, because Krystall Balls, well, her name kind of says it all.
He honestly seemed like the perfect choice.
Just like a woman.